Question 1. In what ways does your media product use, develop or challenge forms and conventions of real media products? Trailer. From looking at my created trailer for Setbacks, I used, developed and challenged many conventions. My trailer Setbacks has a use of narrative conventions due to it following the concept behind Todorow's theory of having a meaning to the story, such as having equilibrium at the beginning. I have shown this by using a time-lapse of a city and a pan of a council estate, allowing the viewer to gain an insight into the person's life and background. I found that it was conventional that most social realism trailers, such as Shank and 4321, started their trailers in disruption. Therefore, I developed my trailer by having equilibrium at the beginning. For example, 4321's trailer started with a news headline talking about a gang of robbers getting away with a large amount of diamonds, showing signs of crime. Similar to Shank's trailer starting with a young boy running away from a male who's chasing him on a bike, again showing immediate links of crime. I have then followed this by disruption, where I have shown the main character of the film becoming depressed, therefore leading him to crime and becoming a drug dealer. However, I found that it was conventional that most social realism films such as Shank and Adulthood had equilibrium after disruption. Therefore, I had again developed my trailer. For example, in Shank's trailer, a character talks about a gang being out of control, therefore giving the audience background information about this gang and what they are capable of. I have then led to recognition within my trailer, where my main character realizes something is wrong and that he has been set up by somebody. I have shown this through various scenes such as him being chased down an alley and being put into a boot of a car. I found that it was conventional to have recognition as the third stage of Todorov in social realism trailers. For example, in Adulthood's trailer, the main character realizes someone wants to kill him. Finally, I have ended my trailer with an attempt to repair, where my main character goes back to school and leaves the criminal life behind. I found that it was conventional that most social realism films, such as Shank, used this as the last stage of Todorov. Shank has shown this in their trailer, where the main character goes to revenge his brother's murder. My trailer contains a good use of genre conventions, such as a syntactic theme and a plot. However, I have developed my trailer's theme more by adding a meaning to the story. This is where my main character begins to follow in his brother's footsteps of leading to crime, such as becoming a drug dealer. I found that the use of having a story related to drugs was conventional, as films such as Ill Manors also had a story related to drugs, showing how drugs can manipulate someone into other various crimes. I have also used various semantic iconography such as guns, drugs and cars. By using these props, I have made my trailer look more action-packed, which is conventional in many social realism trailers, but also because it makes the viewer want to watch more about what may happen next. Syntactic and semantic come from the Altman theory, therefore using these in my trailer was conventional, as most other trailers such as Ill Manors and Fruitvale Station have them. After looking at various other trailers such as Ill Manors and Fruitvale Station from my genre research, I found that it was conventional to have a green screen at the first thing my audience viewers would see. A reason for this was because it was a regulation and because it was conventional in a trailer. I then followed this convention on by showing the institutional logos such as Revolver, Gunslinger and Gateway. These are well-established British social realism institutions. I have, however, challenged this convention as I decided to place my institutional logos at the beginning of the trailer, like Fruitvale Station, whereas Ill Manors had their institutional logos during the middle of the trailer. I placed my institutional logos at the beginning so that my audience could quickly recognize who was behind the making of the trailer, therefore encouraging them to want to watch it. I also found that it was conventional to show the green screen and institutional clips for around 4 to 6 seconds. I have also carried on the convention of keeping my title, billing block and release date at the end of my trailer. I developed my billing block as I showed this before the release date. I did this because I want my release date to be the very last thing my audience see, so they can remember the date. I used various representation conventions in my trailer such as people, places and events. As my genre was social realism, I had various stereotypes of young teens. Some of these stereotypes were of teenagers looking like criminals due to teenagers in my trailer wearing hoodies, tracksuits and snapbacks, hats. Other stereotypes in my trailer were teenagers being in groups, and therefore being represented as thugs or criminals. I shown this stereotype in my trailer as my main character shows a sign of respect to a group of more African, Caribbean and Caucasian teenagers of the same age, showing the stereotype of African Caribbeans and Caucasians being so-called thugs and hooligans. I used various locations related to social realism, such as a council estate for my establishing shot. I used this as it was conventional to have a council estate in a social realism trailer. I also used locations that contained just brick walls. I did this so that my trailer could carry the convention of being in a deserted area, representing the attacking or murder locations. I used these locations in my trailer for a fight scene and various gun scenes. I also used locations that portrayed a low-class living room. This was so that my audience could see that my characters in my trailer were from a low-class background. I've also followed a convention of showing a graveyard, which I found from researching the adulthood trailer. However, I went to further develop this by showing my main character put flowers by a grave, therefore indicating a sign of murder and death to someone close to him. By doing this, I represented the pain that some families can go through due to many people being killed from crime. I went on to challenge my representation as I decided to make main character an Asian. I decided to use an Asian male as my main character because I wanted to let my audience know that ethnicity didn't affect whether you were involved in crime or not, as you could be white, black or brown and still be involved in crime. It was shown from many other social realism trailers such as Ill Manors and Fruitvale Station that the main characters would either be white or black. Therefore I challenged this stereotype and shown that every type of low-class teenager could be a part of crime. I also used a mix of both males and females within my trailer. I carried this convention of having both genders in my trailer as this made my trailer more real and so that the audience could see a different perspective of crime and desperation. I did however find that it was conventional that most of the males and females being shown in social realism trailers such as Ill Manors and Adulthood were either black or white. Therefore I decided to challenge this convention by also having Asian males and females in my trailer. I kept the convention of males being portrayed as the dominant gender due to them being around weapons and drugs. However, I portrayed how females were also involved in crimes such as prostitution and drugs. I showed parts of this in my trailer where a female was getting into a car and how she was smoking. In my trailer I used various cinematography conventions such as having a conventional establishing shot of a council estate which I panned in a time-lapse of a city. I used these because I found from my genre research such as Ill Manors that the council estates and city views were used more than once, as this was showing the low-class background most people lived, leading them to crimes in order to make money. I used a number of stationary long and medium shots where I placed my camera on a tripod. I did this because there was a convention of having still shots in each trailer I had watched or analysed during my genre research. However, I did also add some handheld medium, close-up and long shots for action-packed or intense clips, which was conventional for social realism trailers, as these needed more of enigma for the audience to feel something was happening. A good example of a shot I used for a handheld intense moment was the scene where my main character was getting chased by a rival gang member down an alley. It was also conventional for me to use a number of shots which contained more than one person. For example, I had a variety of medium close-up and long shots where I used 2, 3, 4 people at different times in different shots at the same time. This was conventional in social realism trailers as teenagers are represented as gang members. Captions are seen as an important and conventional element within all film trailers, but most importantly in my genre of social realism, due to them giving away pieces of narrative to the audience about what the story is about or contains. I used a good number of captions, most of which were only one word, such as dreams, murder, loyalty and betrayal. I did this as I didn't want to give too much away, but also because I had a conventional voiceover amongst the rest of my trailer, which explained a lot more. I also kept the convention of having a quote from the MTV which said, "A film of today's generation." I decided to add this because I found that my genre research from Ill Manors would make my trailer look even better to my audience. I used a consistent sans serif font of Urban Jungle in black, as this followed from my poster and website, but also because it had an element of social realism within its look. I also went on to further develop my trailer as I added my sans serif quote, "Everything happens for a reason," from my poster and website on top of my city time-lapse so that my audience could understand the meaning of my quote. I added various editing conventions within my trailer. I did this due to my genre research of looking at Ill Manors and Fruitvale Station's trailers having transitions and effects running through them. I therefore added a conventional cut edit within majority of my trailer, as this was a conventional element for a film trailer, but also in my genre research, as it led from a piece of action quickly to another. I also used a time-lapse sequence as my first film shot on the trailer. I did this as it was conventional to show a large area or city either at night or day, which was speeded up, which portrayed how crime could last for hours and in some cases over night and day. I however felt like I challenged editing conventions within my trailer by not adding a really fast montage at the end of the trailer, as this was seen as a conventional element in social realism trailers. Instead, I increased the speed up a small bit in my trailer, challenging that convention. The sound conventions I used within my trailer were a narration voiceover about small parts of the story, which I wanted my audience to get familiar with. I also used the convention of using dialogue from some scenes in the trailer. This was also seen as a convention and something I had seen from studying social realism trailers such as Ill Manors, Fruitvale Station and Adulthood. I allowed these to mix with the voiceover and soundtrack, therefore going well with my trailer sequence. I also used a conventional soundtrack throughout my trailer. However, I developed this by adding 2 soundtracks, which changed halfway into the trailer. This therefore made my trailer sound less boring. I developed my convention of having a narration voiceover right the way through the trailer, so that I could maintain the interest of my audience all the way through. I also challenged the sound convention in my trailer, as I didn't use contrapuntal sound within my trailer, as I wanted my trailer to keep on moving to new scenes with different narrations, so that they could listen to what the narrator was saying whilst getting a better understanding of what the individual scenes were showing them in relation to the story.